describing to me the student achievement that you want, as your coach, the next thing that I'm going to explore with you are what are the student behaviors that produce the student achievement. That's the backwards planning process. And you've heard how old I am and that I've been at this for 40 years. That is the newest piece of my learning that happened more frequently, probably in the past 5 to 6 years. If you worked with me 25 years ago on coaching, as a coach, I spent most of my time in the teacher's classroom watching the teacher. Today, as a coach, I spend the majority of my time in the classroom watching the kids. And the key to understand is teachers do not cause student achievement. Students cause student achievement. If teachers are causing student achievement, they're cheating. If PE causes kids to get muscles without the kids working out, it's called steroid. Now, what's a steroid in teaching? It's giving kids a shortcut instead of getting the kids to do the work. I was in a grade 2 class last week, and here's what I heard. What do you know about subtraction, boys and girls? The bigger number always goes on top. And the teacher said, yeah. After class, I sat down with her. I said, do me a favor. Look at my bank book. I only wish the bigger number was always on top. And she went, oh my goodness. You see, the problem is in the 2nd grade math book, the bigger number is always on top. But not a good concept for kids to internalize. So the critical part is, when I come into your classroom as your coach, I want you to explain to me, Steve, here's what I'm trying to have happen in student achievement. Because of that, here's the student behaviors that I need to see. But if I'm coming into your classroom to work as a coach, I should understand what's the student achievement that you're seeking. And what student behaviors do you need to happen in order to get that achievement? Then we'll talk about what teacher behaviors are you going to use to get the student behaviors. Now, I found that many teachers, when planning, are skipping this step of student behaviors. So they're looking and saying, here's the content my students are supposed to master, so I'll do this to get them to master it. And what I try and get coaches to do is to get people to stop and describe it as student behaviors. Now, the teacher is making her choices on what teacher behavior in order to get the student behavior. So when we just broke, I asked you to pick 1 or 2 student behaviors that were most important as the school year started. What I'd like you to do now is go back and repeat. In order to get that student behavior, here's what I think my teacher behavior will be. Okay? So I said it's important that kids do this, therefore I'm going to do this. A general guideline for the teacher behavior. Whatever the student behavior is, I need to teach the behavior and model the behavior. Now, how many of you think your kid's learning to cooperate? I asked you this before, but I want to reinforce it. How many of you think your kid's learning to work effectively, cooperatively is critical and important? What skill you want them to develop? Okay. Do you realize in most schools, kids have never seen a teacher cooperate? So in my backwards process, student achievement, I decide the student achievement that I want to reach. I then say, what are the student behaviors that are necessary to cause that student achievement as a result? Then I say, what teacher behaviors are most likely to get me those student behaviors? Now, critical, and I want to explain why coaching fits in here. It's critical that I use the words most likely. What teaching behaviors are most likely to get me the desired student behaviors? And the reason for most likely is that teaching is a profession. When you choose to work in a profession, you work in an area where you must study a lot, learn a lot, and then you conduct experiments with your clients. So, student achievement driven by student behavior, driven by teacher behavior. Then the next question is, do we need to change the way that teachers work with each other, the staff relationships, in order to support this whole backwards process? And I like to look at that through an article written by Roland Barthes. And when Roland Barthes went in and looked at school faculties, he sorted them into these four groups. He said in some faculties, the teachers practiced what he called parallel play. So Barthes said he went to some schools and found that the teachers practice parallel play. They teach near each other, not with each other. So I come into a middle school and I speak with the students and they tell me they have 5 major projects due the same week. Then when I talk to one of the teachers, she quickly tells me, don't talk to me, I only assign 1. That's parallel teaching. Barthes said, good news, most teachers weren't openly confrontational. He said teachers tended to be adversarial through the withholding of information. So I found a great website with learning activities for kids. I didn't send it out to anyone else. I struggled with this child. I spent extra time after school. I met with the parents. I didn't go down and find out who the other teachers are that are working with the child and talk to those teachers. I just kept the information to myself. He called that adversarial. Congenial. Barthes said, good news, most teachers are friendly people. He said, most schools are friendly places to work. When teachers are congenial, they're friendly, but they don't mix work with their friendships. Matter of fact, in some schools, congeniality actually gets in the way of collegiality. You know, I've known the woman for 10 years. Last thing I'd ever want to do is visit her classroom. Because my God, if I saw something she should improve, I wouldn't want to be the one to tell her. In other words, the friendship could actually get in the way of the professional element. So make sure you hear this. Congeniality is not bad, but you want to take it to the next step. And the next step is collegiality. When teachers are collegiate, input from colleagues influences my teaching. So if your school is collegial, teachers are constantly taking their student work, getting other teachers to look at it, to assist them in making decisions about what they're going to do. The more that the school is collegial, the more my work is influenced by the people I work with. Back to the way we started the day. I said to you at the beginning of the day, teaching is a team sport and a public act. So if I bring that back to where we are now, the statement that I make with this backwards plan, a school cannot maximize student achievement until it becomes collegial. You need teachers to make a 3-year commitment to students. And here's what I mean by a 3-year commitment. You need to spend time working with teachers who have students the year before you. Okay, so if I'm teaching Form 3, it means I must spend enough time in Form 2 classrooms. Okay, why? I need to help
that teacher prepare kids for my program. Okay? Okay. So the Form 3 teacher is responsible for helping Form 2 prepare kids for what they need to do in Form 3. Then you should collaborate with anybody who has kids the same year you have them. So now as a Form 3 teacher, it's with other Form 3 teachers, and it's with art, music, and physical education and technology teachers who are having the same kids. And then I need to follow up with kids a year after I've had them. So I have to spend enough time in the next year's teacher's class in order to learn how to prepare my kids for that program. And I'm responsible to assist next year's teacher in being successful with kids who I just spent the whole year with.
Student achievement, driven by student behaviors, instigated, supported by teacher behaviors, supported by the relationships we develop with staff works with each other, and now we're ready to get to our leadership. So the job of school leaders, and that's teacher leaders and administrative leaders. The job of school leaders is to support the collaborative environments that support the rest of this process. And what does it mean to be a leader? It means to be most vulnerable. So the leaders should go first. So if you've got a leadership teaching position in the school, you should go first. Okay? Coaching should occur with a pre-conference, an observation, and a post-conference. So before I go into a person's classroom, I'm going to spend some time talking with that person in a pre-conference. I'll be training you in what the skills are that you use and what it is you want to have happen in that pre-conference structure. Then I go and I do the observation, and then I conduct the post-conference. In the post-conference, I'm going to provide the teacher with the feedback that the teacher requested in the pre-conference. I'd like to talk to you about questions. And I'm going to use a phrase that I'm guessing you're familiar with, which is open and closed questions. Can I get some kind of nods that the words make sense to you? Open questions versus closed questions. Okay? And instead of looking at questions as being just one or the other, I like to look at questions as being on a continuum. So on one end of my continuum, I've placed closed questions. On the other end of my continuum, I've placed open. Now, you know that questions are closed because the question controls the conversation. You know that questions are open because the answer controls the conversation. Now, while Alan said that I asked questions that caused Dennis to think, here's the most important thing you need to know about the thinking that she did. Every answer she gave was correct. Why? Because she couldn't get it wrong. You know, I asked her, what are you going to do? Well, whatever she's doing is what she's doing. When I ask her why she's doing it, whatever her reason is why. I'm not going to argue with her. I'm not debating. All I'm doing is writing it down. So then the chance for her when we get to the post-conference is to see whether or not what she was thinking was going to cause this to happen, in effect, happen. Open questions. You want to uncover thinking. You are looking for opinions, problem solving, creativity. When I'm giving students a creative task, my questions tend to be open. Critical thinking, discussions. Primary teachers, if you're looking for language development, you're frequently using open-ended questions because they're going to create more conversation. Emotions and feelings. Okay?